Have you ever wondered how a nation, one that's actually younger than many of our grandparents, can become such a global powerhouse? I mean, Israel was founded in 1948, but its influence on the world stage is just massive. In this explainer, we're going to break down the 4 key pillars that, according to our source, really unlock this secret to its incredible success.
It's a real paradox when you think about it. A state that's only been around for about 77 years is wielding influence that can rival nations with centuries, literally centuries of history. So what's the secret sauce? Well, the source material we're digging into suggests it's not just one thing, but a very specific and very powerful combination of factors.
Okay, so to help us wrap our heads around this, our source uses a pretty cool analogy. Imagine a brand new football club. It was just formed a few years ago, and then all of a sudden it starts competing with and even beating the historical giants, the legends of the league. It seems almost impossible, right? Well, that's the same dynamic the source says applies to Israel. A new player on the world stage that has shot up to a surprising level of power in a very, very short amount of time.
So where do we even begin to unpack this? Well, the first piece of the puzzle, according to our source, is simple. You follow the money. And we're talking about an almost unbelievable amount of money that really forms the foundation of this whole story.
And here it is, the first number that just makes your jaw drop. $3 trillion. According to the source, that's how much aid the U.S. gave to Israel in just over 50 years. I mean, it's a number so huge it's almost impossible to even comprehend.
So to try and put that into perspective, the source breaks it down for us. With $3 trillion, you could make every single one of Israel's 10 million citizens a millionaire. Or you could build the entire glittering city of Dubai 30 times. Or, get this, you could give every single person in Morocco the equivalent of $80,000. So the main point here is this level of support is just staggering, and it naturally leads to the next question: why?
To even begin to understand the why behind that kind of money, we have to rewind the clock. A lot. The source points to 2 major historical pillars, one ancient, one much more modern, that it argues are the very bedrock of Israel's existence. The first pillar is this ancient religious claim. As the source lays it out, the story starts thousands of years ago with Abraham's journey to a land called Canaan. Generations later, his descendants, the Banu Israel, come back from Egypt to that very same land, which of course leads to conflict with the people already living there. Now, this story is so important because it establishes this deep, ancient connection to that specific piece of land. Okay, let's fast forward a few thousand years to the modern political pillar. It really kicks off in 1897, when Zionism emerges as a political movement with one clear goal: establish a Jewish state. Then, under the British mandate, immigration to the region is made easier. And this all culminates in 1948 with the official declaration of the State of Israel, the partitioning of the land, and the birth of the modern nation we see today. But history and money, that's only part of the story. The next huge piece of this puzzle, according to this analysis, is an internal strategy, one that was born from a constant feeling of being under siege. It's about innovation forged by pure necessity. Think about it. Right from its birth, Israel was surrounded by nations that were, let's just say, not its biggest fans. This geopolitical reality created this constant pressure cooker environment, and this source argues this left Israel with basically one choice, one path forward for survival: innovate or perish. That absolute necessity became the mother of this powerful internal engine, one laser-focused on science and military self-sufficiency. And this chart right here, wow, it perfectly illustrates what that innovate or perish mindset looks like in practice. Just look at the national investment in research and development, R&D, as a percentage of their economy. The source points out that Israel invests 6.3%, the highest in the world. Now compare that to 1.2% for the UAE, or an average of just 0.5% for other Arab nations. We're not talking about a small gap here. This is a fundamental, strategic chasm. So what do you get for all that investment? Well, the return is incredibly tangible. The source points to things like $15 billion in projected arms sales, an average income of $54,000 per person, and a passport that gets you into 150 countries without a visa. That relentless focus on R&D has clearly paid off in a big way, across the board. All right, now we get to the 4th pillar, and it's one that the source presents as a really deep and significant layer of influence. Now, it's important to say this is a controversial argument,
But the source makes the case that a global network of powerful individuals and families plays a huge role in steering international support towards Israel. The whole idea from the source here is that in global politics, it's powerful people, not abstract countries, who really call the shots. To make this point, the source brings up U.S. President Joe Biden. It claims he has Jewish origins and then argues that this personal background is a factor in his policy decisions. Now, to be clear, this is the source's interpretation connecting personal heritage directly to international politics. And to build on this argument, the source then points to some very specific, very big names. It mentions historic banking families like the Rothschilds, major political donors like the Adelsons, and of course tech titans like Google's Sergey Brin, Michael Bloomberg, and Facebook's Mark Zuckerberg, arguing they all hold massive influence in their fields.
So just to be super clear on this point, the source's ultimate argument here is that this network support isn't for the political state of Israel, as a government. Rather, it concludes that the support is for Israel because it's seen as the modern embodiment of their shared heritage and religion, Judaism. So to see how all these pieces, the intelligence, the military muscle, the sheer commitment, all come together in the real world, the source gives us a really powerful case study, the legendary 1976 rescue mission in Entebbe, Uganda. I mean, just imagine the tension. A plane gets hijacked. The Jewish and Israeli passengers are separated from the others, held hostage with an execution deadline of less than 24 hours. In that tiny window, the Mossad somehow gets detailed blueprints of the airport and comes up with this incredibly audacious plan. They're going to land military planes in the dead of night, disguised as the Ugandan president's convoy. What happened next was just extraordinary. In only 90 minutes, every single hostage was free and on their way home. It was a stunning display of capability, and it sent a very clear message to the entire world. So, let's bring it all home. According to the analysis in our source material, the secret to Israel's success isn't just one thing. It's a powerful combination of these 4 pillars: massive external funding, a compelling and deep-rooted historical claim, a relentless internal drive for innovation, and a highly effective external network of influential supporters. And the source wraps things up with this really stark comparison. It contrasts what it calls Israel's strategic focus on long-term assets, like scientific research, human resources, and universities, with what it describes as other nations' focus on more superficial projects, like extravagant attractions or sports teams. And this leaves us with one last really provocative question that gets right to the heart of the source's argument. Is the ultimate key to a nation's long-term power and success not its oil or its size or even its ancient history, but its willingness to relentlessly and unapologetically invest in the minds of its people? It's a pretty powerful idea to